Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pretty Real Persona podcast. I am your host, Ariana. In today's episode, I want to talk about self worth and not the Instagram version, but the foundational one. So let's get into it. But as always, I want to start with the soul check, and I want to just, check in with you guys and see how you guys are doing. Like, how has your week been? How is, life going for you right now? The good and the bad, the ugly, the raw version. For me right now, life is going pretty good. Work's been good. I'm excited. My birthday's coming up, so I'm going to be going out of town for that. I don't really want to say where I'm going yet, so I'm not going to. So yeah, that's kind of something that's going on with me right now. But drop what you guys are feeling, what's going on in your lives in the comments. Yeah, and let's get this episode started, babies. So I want to start off by talking about what the difference between self-worth, self-esteem, and self-confidence is. Because they are all very important things, but they are all, slightly different in meaning. So our self-confidence is the confidence we have in our ability to do task, to achieve something, do something. Your self-esteem is your overall value and worth as a person. So more of your inner, who you feel like you are as a person, and your view of your lens and view of yourself as a person, as who you are. And your self-worth is the belief in your value as a person. So those are all, a little bit different things. And those are all hard things to maintain those are all things that we should be constantly trying to build up as a person, as people, and trying to nurture those things and those concepts, because how you think about yourself is so important, because the things you think about yourself can affect the way you operate and the way you go about your daily life, how you treat people. So it's like, if you're feeling like you have low self-esteem and low self-worth, low self-confidence, that could, make you start to treat others, very badly because of how you view yourself. You could be easily projecting onto others. So that's a reason we should always be pouring into those kind of things, those concepts, and improving ourselves and our version, and making who we think we are with who we actually are aligned. So I wanted to touch on self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, more individualistically, and just get into some different points. So I kind of did some research, and I want to just kind of touch on them. So self-esteem, it encompasses your feelings about yourself in various areas like intelligence, personality, appearance, and success. Value or your worth as a person, like intelligence you feel like you have as a person, or how much how good you look, which is another thing why I say look good, feel good. And how successful you feel like you are as a person, or your personality. What do you feel like your personality value is? And then it's self-esteem. Your self-esteem is built from your childhood, and a lot of times it's very influenced by how our self-esteem is a reflection of how well our parents fostered or built up or broke down our self-esteem as a child. And sometimes your self-esteem can fluctuate based on external factors, or feedback from others, or how people things people have told us, that often goes into our subconscious, and that takes into it, that affects how we view ourselves. When sometimes we got to look outside of what other people said. That's why I talked about how important it is to work and train your brain to have that positive self-talk. That's a way to build your self-esteem, is to reframe negative talk in your head. So moving on to self-confidence. So your belief in your abilities, like skills and judgments. So it focuses more specific than self-esteem, often related to particular tasks or situations. And it really develops over time through experience and success. So that's why I think schools shape a lot of how we our self-confidence. So just what how well we're able to learn things and learn skills, confident or like competent we feel as people. Then your self-worth, its focus is more a fundamental sense of being worthy of love and belonging regardless of like accomplishments or failures. And it's often developed, in your childhood, influenced by experiences as well. The impact of your self-worth, it provides a stronger, more stable sense of self than self-esteem, and it's less influenced by external factors. So your self-worth is less influenced by things around you, more influenced by how you feel internally. Things that can help are like, saying affirmations to yourself. That'll help you build your self-worth. Like training, but not only saying, but like, I think another thing for me, like how I feel like I built my self-worth when it was low, was like affirmations was a huge thing for me. Like I would say them in the mirror, even if I didn't believe them. This is what I wanted to believe about myself because I knew these things were true. So I would say them over and over and over again until I believed it. When we get into the conversation of how much like our childhood shapes our self-confidence, our self-worth, and our self-esteem. So it's like, say you grew up in a, the family, and you experience a lot of trauma as a kid, that negatively can affect, your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-confidence. It's so important how kids grow up. I emphasize this. Like, it's so important how kids grow up, because it's like, say you were always made to feel like you're needy or sensitive, or like you don't know how to control yourself, or like you're fast, or because you just, you like to hang out with people, and you want you like stuff like that. Those are things that like parents our parents have instilled in us, or things that they've said to us. They negatively impact how we see ourselves. And we see a lot of times, like, that's how it's like, grow your childhood is that's why it's important for you to unpack your childhood and things that you've been through as a child, so that you can challenge and reframe, things that have happened to you as a kid, and see how everything that you have been through as a kid, how it is literally shaping and showing up in your adult life now. And rewiring your brain and working through healing through, any trauma that you've experienced. And I think just journaling, some prompts about these areas, and just trying to figure out who you are as a person, because self-worth is not about what you do, it's about who you are. So it's like, no one can tell you who you are. You are who you say you are. No one knows you better than you know yourself. So it's like, get to know yourself. Get to, recognize your patterns and things, and, what start to write out what's important to you. What are your values? What are your morals? What do you stand for? Then once you know that and you're solid on that, then, you know, start to help yourself build yourself up in ways that align with who you are. So I feel like that is, an important part of like developing your self-worth, your self-confidence, your self-esteem. So there are many things that you can do to help, rebuild your self-worth, which a big thing is reframing your inner dialogue to be positive. Because again, a lot of things that our subconscious mind or our mind says are things that, people have told us about ourselves, but it's like people don't get to determine who we are, because everybody has a different perception. So it's like your perception of who you are matters more than anybody else's perception of who you are. So that's why it's important for you to figure out, and you to gain a full perception, a full understanding of who am I, so that you can stand on who you are. And when people try to tell you who you are, you can ignore that, because you know exactly who you are, or you can defend yourself in areas where you know exactly who you are. So practicing that positive inner dialogue, changing your negative thoughts to be positive. Practicing setting boundaries. This is a huge thing, and this is even one thing that I'm still working on as a person. I'm still working on fully understanding what my boundaries are in like every area of my life, where it comes to like friendships, relationships, family, work, just boundaries with myself, goals. But I did a little bit of some research, and so I have some things that are going to help me and you learn, what it means to set boundaries. So boundaries in general. Boundaries are the limits you set for yourself in relationships and situations to protect your emotions, physical and mental well-being. Um, so boundaries are not for anybody else. Boundaries are for you to protect your well-being. And they matter because boundaries prevent overcommitment, protect against emotional manipulation, and help you feel safe and respected. So that's probably the biggest piece for me is like it's a lot of times in my life where I haven't where I feel like how empathetic I am allows people to try to manipulate me. And so I've like set boundaries, like even when I had started like before I found my girlfriend that I have now, I think that I genuinely attracted her because of the boundaries that I set. I had set dating boundaries and non-negotiables when it came to dating. So I got more serious, more intentional because I knew like I wanted to date to marry. I want to date to find someone who is for me, that I love, who I want to spend the rest of my life with, someone who I'm proud to, be with. And I feel like I have that now. And I feel like it's because I set those kind of boundaries so where I cannot be manipulated or be where I have to be respected, where I want to feel safe. I feel like a lot of situations, a lot of things, it was hard for me to feel like completely safe in my life because of, I feel like, the lack of boundaries that I had, which also contributes to people pleasing. That is why boundaries matter, because I'm going to read it again. Boundaries prevent overcommitment, protect against emotional manipulation, and help you feel safe and protected. And those are all important things that you want to feel. Um, and now, how to set boundaries. So, first, you identify your need. You have to understand what you need and what you're not willing to compromise on. That's first. What do you need and what are you unwilling to compromise on? And then communicate clearly. So express your needs and boundaries assertively and honestly. Enforce your boundaries, stand your ground even if others try to push them. So you want to identify your needs, communicate clearly, enforce your boundaries. And I want to tell you this. Anybody who is not willing to respect your boundaries that you set for them does not belong in your life. One more time. Anybody who is unwilling to accept your boundaries that you're setting does not belong in your life. And setting boundaries shows you exactly who is supposed to be in your life and who's meant to be in your life. Like if you tell someone like how they made you feel and their first reaction um, is to gaslight you by denying your experience, then like this person is probably not meant to be in my life, especially if they don't offer any understanding when you're trying to, communicate understandings. You have to show people how to treat you. People don't just know how to treat you. People have a default of how they just treat anybody. But when you set boundaries and you have things you're not willing to deal with, that teaches people how to treat you. Another thing that helps you build your self-worth is developing self-trust. I think this is a part where this is something that I am personally working on. Um, I think that like I can trust myself. I do think it's hard for me to trust myself in anybody. And I just feel like that's from like growing up having to rely on just myself solely in a lot of things, a lot of endeavors in my life. Um, so it's like I know I can trust myself, but because it's hard for me to trust anybody or to rely on anybody or to feel like anybody has me in any kind of way, I do think that like building self-trust is a huge thing for me to like be working through and working on. So I want to help you, and I'm gonna show you what this says. So it says, what is self-trust? So like self-trust is believing in your own judgment, abilities, and instincts. um so following your intuition, like that's a huge thing for me. Like I trust, like a lot of times my intuition, like as a Cancer, any of my Cancers out there, drop your birthday in the comments. But um, as a Cancer, like my intuition is very strong and I can often trust my gut, trust my first thought. So that's another thing I work on. That's a part of developing self trust and like trusting in yourself and your instincts. Like you ever like took a test and you realize, okay, so my first thought, you didn't go with the first, even if you say you didn't know it, or maybe you thought you did, and you read a question and you had two answers in mind. And the first answer you didn't go with the first answer, but you went with the second answer, and the first answer ended up being right. That is an example of, trust your intuition and don't question yourself. It's an example of like trusting your intuition, trusting yourself and your abilities. Why it matters. Self-trust is essentially for making good decisions, taking risk, and navigating life changes. If you have a hard time making decisions and you want to be a better decision maker, like, you have to be able to trust in yourself and your abilities and your abilities to make the right decisions and take the right risk. How to build self-trust, which I'm listening up here because I honestly, it's something I need to work on. It says acknowledge your feelings, understand and validate your emotions without judgment. So I think you can do that also by journaling. So just talking about how you feel and validate that. You're, like I was saying in last episode, your feelings are valid, but the actions that come with your feelings sometimes are not always valid. Practicing self-compassion. Yes, this is a huge thing. One thing I had to learn. I had to literally learn. I'm always nice to others, but when it comes to myself, like, I don't think I'm as nice as I am to others, to myself. So I had to give myself compassion because I'm used to just giving it out and being compassionate for others, putting others as my first thought. But then when I started to put myself first and started to nurture the compassion for myself, nurture myself like I nurture others, like, that is like, it's very healing. It is like when you're sitting in those emotions, sitting in those moments, and it's hard for you, like, give yourself a hug, or tell yourself like it's going to be okay. Like, we'll take it one day at a time, things like that. Like, those foster self-compassion. And focus on your strengths, like recognize and celebrate your accomplishment and positive qualities, giving yourself credit for how well that you do. Reflect on past experiences, learn from your mistakes, and identify patterns in your behavior. That is a huge one. Comes into the like self-responsibility, self-accountability kind of thing, is like, and that reflecting on past experiences will help you. So, like, okay, identify patterns, things that you have done more than one time, or reoccurring situations, and being able to analyze yourself for like self-development. It's important to do all of those things, setting boundaries, developing self-trust, and creating a positive self interlog, and then also like choosing yourself without an apology. You don't have to give someone a reason why you said no, or you don't have to explain to anyone why you're choosing yourself. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And into all of those things. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in, tapping into Pretty Real Persona, baby. I am your host, Ariana. If you like today's episode and you've learned something, like and subscribe this video. Follow us on TikTok, on Instagram, and thank you guys for tuning in. I love you guys. Bye.